on a lumpy mattress in a musty hotel room. I tried to stop the spins by focusing on the water stains on the ceiling, to no avail. There wasn't enough oxygen in that god-awful room. My wife, Ella, sat away from me at the edge of the bed. She reached out to feel my forehead. "Are you all right?" she asked. What a ridiculous question. Of course I wasn't all right. Not that it would have made any difference had she known how bad it truly was. She was determined to get out there and see everything. And I mean everything. "Just give me a few minutes," I said. "Sure," she replied. "But don't take too long." It had all been a bit much. The horrid flight, the dreadful man at the car rental agency, and now this, the insult of being assigned the smallest, dingiest room in all of Western Europe. "I think we should take the innkeeper's advice," I said, "and put this off until tomorrow." Ella crossed her arms, like a petulant child. "If we don't go today, there won't be enough time tomorrow. We've got a jam-packed itinerary." Correction, I thought. We didn't have a jam-packed itinerary. Ella had a jam-packed itinerary. She'd mapped out every second of every day in excruciating detail. So much for the restful holiday I'd been promised. "The innkeeper was quite insistent," I said, "given the lateness of the hour and the freak snowstorm, not to mention the closure of one of the 3 churches you want to see. Going now probably isn't the best idea." She yanked my arm, refusing to take no for an answer. And that's how I ended up at the top of a hill in southern Andorra, sulking about my cold, wet feet, wondering why I'd let her talk me into this. We'd been climbing hills and fording streams for well over an hour, crossing paths with more goats and chickens than humans. Locals raved about this trek, which was called the Tomb Loredia. I had no idea whether tomb had the same meaning in English and Catalan, but as I stared down at snow-covered graves in the small cemetery beside the church, I could only assume it did. Ella had tried to coax me inside, but I refused to join her. "You have to see the murals," she'd said, as if that would make any difference. The tiny church could have had the best murals ever painted in all of human history, and I still wouldn't have stepped foot inside. My wife and I had been married for 7 years, together for 8. Yet even after all these years, she remained blissfully unaware of my acute claustrophobia. The generous quantity of anti-anxiety pills I'd popped before our flight, my aversion to our minuscule hotel room, and my refusal to enter this ancient church should have tipped her off. Sometimes she seemed to have no interest in me at all. Perhaps it was time to stop kidding myself and admit there was someone else, someone she loved more than me. The Tomb Loredia trek was a big loop that started and finished in Sant Julià de Lòria parish, and this was the second church we'd seen. There was one more church to go, presumably the closed one, before we could return to our crappy hotel. As we navigated hills, orchards, and meadows, I glanced up at the sky periodically with increasing trepidation. The sun was trending down as the clouds rolled in, inspiring dread. Were we due for another dump of snow? We really ought to have sprinted, but that was impossible. Beneath the snow were loose, slippery rocks, so it was crucial to proceed with extreme caution, particularly since the trail was treacherous at times, steeply dropping off to one side. Whenever we came upon a particularly perilous section, Ella came to a dead stop, clutched my arm and closed her eyes, taking a few deep breaths to still her racing heart. Given her debilitating fear of heights, it seemed insane that Ella had chosen to include a hike with vertical drop-offs in her itinerary. There were several signposts along the way pointing us toward the third and final landmark, Sant Martí de Nagol Church. Propped up against one of these signs was a rather peculiar item, a large wooden cross. Why on earth would someone leave a massive cross on a mountaintop trail connecting 2 medieval churches? Miraculously, we managed to reach the third church while there was still sufficient daylight to admire it. And what a remarkable feat of ancient engineering it was. Built into a rocky outcrop at the edge of a steep cliff that offered a stunning view of the Valira Valley, the tiny church hung almost vertically over the village of Nagol. Built in Romanesque style, the ancient stone structure had a rectangular nave, semicircular apse, and gabled bell tower, but its orientation was of necessity east rather than west-facing. In place of a door, a gate of vertical bars had been fitted inside the door frame. Ella was disappointed to find the church locked and inaccessible, though I could not have cared less. Had the door been open and the entrance overhung with a flashing neon welcome sign, I would not have stepped foot inside that tomb-like edifice. Its 4 small windows provided little in the way of natural light, though there was not much to see. No benches, no murals, just a stone altar topped with an oversized stone slab. Leaving Ella to gawk at the interior through metal bars, I clambered up the snow-covered rocks behind the church to get a better view of the valley and village below. The scenery was spectacular, and for a brief moment I felt grateful Ella had dragged me up there. No sooner had my heart filled with the warmth of gratitude than I lost my footing and fell, impaling myself on a tree branch which, for better or worse, snapped beneath the weight of my falling body. As I continued my descent, and despite the searing pain in my abdomen, I grasped at rocks, branches, anything at all, until I gained a foothold. In retrospect, it's a wonder I didn't tumble all the way down the cliff to the village far, far below. As I sat in excruciating pain, horrified at the sight of the branch protruding from my belly, Ella screamed. The world around me began to spin. I choked on vomit. Ella tried to tell me something, but I couldn't grasp her meaning. It was cold, so very cold. My breaths grew shallow and rapid. I threw up once, maybe twice. Distant things became blurry. Up became indistinguishable from down. Lucidity washed over me in waves. "You have to go," I said. Ella shook her head. "I'm not leaving you." I tried to stifle my tears. "It hurts," I said. "The innkeeper will send help," said Ella. How could she be so naive? "He doesn't even know we're gone," I said. "He didn't see us leave, and probably thinks we're in our room, heeding his sage advice to postpone this trek till morning." "I can't go back the way we came," said Ella. "The long way, through the forest. It's too dark. The only other way down is the trail to Nagol, but it's steep, practically vertical. I can't do it without you." I squeezed her hand. "Of course you can." Ella snuggled into me, offering a partial reprieve from the biting cold. "I have to stay here and keep you warm." "I'll be fine," I said. Ella shook her head. "You couldn't even go inside the other church. What makes you think I can just snap my fingers and wish away my fear of heights?" How long had she known about my claustrophobia, I wondered. Of course, it was unreasonable to expect her to conquer her fear of heights on the fly, but I was running out of time and help wasn't coming. If she didn't leave soon, I would surely die. And that's when it hit me, the harshest realization of all. Perhaps my wife wanted me to die. Snow crumbled away from the sky, carpeting the land in powdered ice. After a time, Ella wiped away her tears, kissed my cheek and stood. "I'll be back," she said. "I love you." But did she, really? As Ella disappeared down the trail, my thoughts grew as dark as the night sky. Would my death be long and agonizing, or mercifully quick? Which dreadful thing would do me in first? Blood loss, shock, freezing temperatures, infection. I regretted that Ella had capitulated to my demand, depriving me of a distraction from the agonizing pain and my tormented thoughts. "Ella," I screamed, but there was no reply. She was gone. I sensed movement inside the church. It was empty, but the door was open. I was situated near enough to see inside. A solitary candle flickered, illuminating the altar and walls. Had it been lit all along? I couldn't remember. The open door was an invitation that I ought to have accepted, but the risk of seeking refuge was too great. I couldn't bear the thought of getting trapped inside. Nearby, shuffling, scratching sounds cut through the silence. "Ella?" I asked. A sinister figure emerged from the darkness. Not Ella. a medieval monk dressed in a simple brown robe, cinched at the waist with a rope belt. He wore open-toed sandals despite the snow, and hauled a heavy wooden cross on his back that cut a narrow channel through the fresh snow. I couldn't get enough oxygen and began to hyperventilate. From nowhere and everywhere, a deep, unfamiliar voice spoke, becoming louder as the monk drew nearer. "She cannot be trusted." "I know," I replied. "She is cheating on you." "I know." The monk got right up in my face, so close I could sense his moist, putrid exhalations. My heart pounded against my chest, my whole body shivered from cold, possibly terror. The monk vanished. A woman screamed, "Ella!" Propped against the wall of the apse just behind the altar was the cross. Ella was nailed to it. I loved her so much. She was the only thing that made my life worth living. I had to rescue her. I crawled over jagged rocks, slicing my knees, then clambered up makeshift stairs. My pulse was pounding. I dragged myself across the threshold and extended one arm, trying to reach her. But the nearer I came to my beloved wife, the further away she got. The room was spinning. I threw up. The monk drifted through the open door and stood behind the altar, glaring down at me with his awful red eyes. "She didn't love you enough to seek help. She gave up on you." "That's not true," screamed Ella. I knew it. I lay down on the cold stone floor and stared up at the rafters, welcoming death. I awoke sometime later to unfamiliar smells in an unfamiliar white room. A man in a lab coat hovered over me, shining a penlight into each eye. "Am I dead?" I asked. The man laughed. "You are in the hospital." "Where is Ella?" I asked. "I am very sorry, Signor," replied the doctor. "Your wife did not make it." I inhaled deeply, recoiling from the sharp pain in my abdomen. "You must be careful, Signor. Your recovery will take much time. You lost a lot of blood and nearly died." "Did they take her off the cross?" I asked. "I do not understand your meaning," replied the doctor. "Which cross?" "Inside the church," I replied. "Your wife was not inside the church," said the doctor. "She fell down a cliff, Signor. I am very sorry. When you did not take your breakfast in the hotel, the innkeeper summoned an emergency crew. Had your wife stayed with you and not tried to be a hero, she would still be alive." The doctor left me alone. In my mind's eye, Ella was with me, desperate to stay by my side. Her voice quivered at the prospect of venturing into the darkness alone to navigate the steep trail. I wanted to sleep, but couldn't. I'd probably never sleep again.